What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Check the Kick. I'm the host, Devin. Sherdog.com is the website. And I apologize for the absence last week. I had to work late, and then I picked something up where I was feeling kind of under the weather. Fellow Sherdog associate Keith asked me to do the post-fight show from this past weekend, and I did not have enough energy to do that. Shout out to Dane. He stepped in there. That was a really cool preview show. I did miss doing a recap of the Moreno Albazi. Moreno looked really, really great. I didn't do a preview for this past card. My guy, Carlos Prates, defeated Neil Magny. I got points for that in the Sherdog Fantasy. He is my welterweight that I selected. We're going to start off with the first segment of the show, Out with the Old. We're only going to talk about one fight. Maybe we'll talk about Renier de Ridder a little bit. But we're going to talk about Carlos Prates, fighting nerd. Nothing nerd about this guy. He's cool as fuck. Low-key nerds have always been cool anyway. If anyone knows me personally, and I'll shed a little bit of light on my personal life, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings nerd. I don't think Carlos Prates is a Lord of the Rings nerd, but he's a fight nerd. He's awesome. That camp, man, I mean, this weekend we've got Mauricio Hufi coming up. This will be his second fight in the UFC. Excuse me. We've got Gene Silva, who's also my featherweight selection for the fantasy MMA, Sherdog Fantasy MMA. He's looking incredible. Caio Borralho, the one that spearheaded that team. Bruna Brazil kind of just recently transferred over to that team, and she's got a couple dubs. So those guys and girls are fighting their asses off. Carlos Prates, he looked great in his also too, like, there's an argument for Carlos Prates to be fighter of the year, straight up. Like, yeah, I know it's Ilia Topuria. Anybody with more than one brain cell should pick Ilia Topuria as fighter of the year. Number two, or 1A, 1B, Alex Pereira. I mean, Alex Pereira fought a bunch of times this year and won in devastating fashion, but Ilia Topuria killed Max Holloway and Volkanovski in 1 year. But Carlos Prates, the dude has fought in every quarter of this year, knocked everyone that F out on his way doing it. And, he recently said, he was fighting for $200 before he made it here. And now here he is. He's got big Jean Charles, GSP's Muay Thai guy that went to the Ultimate Fighter House and beat up Alex Caceres and all the other kids from that season. But he's got those vibes. He's smoking darts and breaking hearts. He's got a incredible southpaw left hand, and this is the first fight in a while that I've seen where I both of the times he really hurt Neil Magny, I didn't really see the shot. Upon replay, you see that kind of straight. It's not really. It's an overhand, but it's tight with his left hand, and he's so good at it. I mean, his punches are like a bullwhip. He is so able to transfer so much power with his long range. But Neil Magny was kind of ducking at the same time, and it clipped him behind the ear and just sent him face first into the ground. Before that, he also hit him with a weird kind of glancing shot. Neil Magny came out with the right idea. He's got a pretty decent jab, and he's long, and he, kind of tried to push Carlos Prates on the back foot. Prates is an athletic dynamo. He's an incredible athlete. I would say plus athleticism, but he's not this giant powerhouse dude. So, Neil Magny did have a couple moments in the clinch against him, tried to go for takedowns against the cage. I think he went 0 for 7. There was a moment where they kind of got entangled, and Prates ended up taking Magny down and was willing to stay in his guard for a little bit and work. I thought that was a really brave thing for him to do in a fight like this. But my only grievance about Prates is his physical strength. He's got really good takedown defense. He's got really incredible power. But his physical strength, I don't think he likes to be in the clinch. And I just think he's better at range. And I think he's a little too willing to be in the clinch. And someone, maybe like a Shavkat that could brawl with him in the clinch may make him pay for that, or a good boxer like Jack Della Maddalena. Somebody with some good dirty boxing, some good hockey punching skills, a la someone what Daniel Cormier used to do to people. I think someone could maybe mug him in the clinch a little bit, but Neil Magny couldn't. Um, once he gets rolling forward and he starts like kind of lining you up. Well, he's a southpaw, so he's lining you up with his right hand, pushing forward. If he's lining you up and he's got a hand on you, he's one of the more dangerous dudes. I mean, look at Charles Radke. Even in this fight, he really uses his lead hand to find range to set up his rear hand, and fuck, he got so much power. Laura Sanko even was like, yeah, once he starts getting people on the back foot and he starts lining them up and he finds his range, it's over. And like, he kind of just started swagging on Magny there at the end and was just like, I'm going to go kill this dude. Went out there and fucking did it. He looked awesome. Like, there's no negatives. Carlos Prates, he's not that young. He's got like 6 losses. But that doesn't matter. Like, when he fights like this, it's awesome. And he's not the type of dude that is going to have people not wanting to fight him like Sean Brady, where it's like, oh, I'm just going to be stuck under this guy. You know, people are going to want to fight Carlos Prates. Like, other strikers are going to want to fight him. He's fun. The UFC is going to get behind him. I would love to talk about Carlos Prates for like 20 minutes, but he didn't give us enough to talk about. He just went out there and kind of stomped on Neil Magny. He did what he was supposed to do. He's a big favorite. Yeah, Jon Jones, Khalil Roundtree, a ton of people all wearing the nerd glasses. Everyone seems to love him. He's got like a shtick, and it's awesome. It's this like, you know, smoking darts, breaking hearts. Like, he's just smoking cigarettes, and he's a fucking killer. There's some like someone made some like fight shorts with like a Marlboro like carton or pack with his face like on them or something like that, for like some fight shorts for him. Obviously that wouldn't happen, but that's cool. It's good that he's got like a shtick because he's not the youngest guy, but he called out Jack Della Maddalena. I like it. He called out Jeff Neal. I like that too. I also like him fighting the loser of Ian Gary versus Joaquin Buckley, or anybody ahead of him in the rankings. When he's doing this to people, you don't fight backwards. Excuse me. Keep him away from MVP. I think MVP tried to have his title run and realized that's not going to happen, and he's calling for fights with Shara Bullet, and I totally think that makes sense for someone like MVP. But for Prates, just like any dude above him in the rankings that's going to have a fun fight with him, like, can the long, rangy, accurate striker put up with a good combination pocket puncher like Jack Della Maddalena, who's got, you know, a tricky lead hand with a good check hook game and good boxing combinations, a good footwork himself? Or can he get into a brawl with someone like Jeff Neal, who's also a southpaw, who's got a fucking piston of a left hand, who throws it just as straight and just as hard as Prates? Even if you beat Jeff Neal in a fight, like, go ahead and ask Shavkat Rakhmonov how that fight went. You know, fucking wars. I would totally love to see a fight like that. Or even, I kind of think Buckley's going to probably beat Ian Gary. I think. I don't know. But like, Prates could totally pull a fun fight out of Ian Gary. Sorry, I've got my 1-year-old, he just turned 1, pit bull running around on my legs, and he's right here next to me. I'm petting him right now. All right, Benny, go off. Go on. Sorry about that. I think someone like Carlos Prates could pull a fun fight out of Ian Gary, just with the takedown defense and everything that he possesses. He's a fun dude, and he's not young. He's got a lengthy Muay Thai career. He's got plenty of experience. Comes from a great camp. Let's put the jetpack to this dude and get him up in the rankings. Just don't make him fight Wonder Boy, and don't do that to Wonder Boy, and don't make him fight like Gilbert Burns. The UFC loves taking their toys and bashing them into each other, and give him. If I had my pick, I would be picking the loser of Ian Gary and Joaquin Buckley for him. Neil Magny, he did what he was supposed to do. He showed up. He tried his, feel bad for the guy. He's been finished twice in a row. Face planted this time out. And he used to be a durable guy, but I think it's just, he's got the most fights at welterweight. It's a dangerous division. If he's not fighting someone like Tim Means or like Court McGee next time out, you know, someone just kind of bad, then he should, really look at management. I don't think he should be taking these stepping stone gatekeeper fights anymore. He's just taking too much damage doing it. Um, but hey, I'm recording this on Veterans Day. Shout out to Neil Magny. He is a veteran himself. And to any of the veterans listening to this, shout out to you guys. I do feel bad for Neil Magny because he seemed so confident going into the fight, but he kind of got stomped out. That card was pretty cool. UFC Apex 100. Couple tidbits really quickly. Renier de Ritter did defeat Gerald Meerschaert via Gerald Meerscharting in the third round. Via arm triangle. It was a back and forth fight where Gerald Meerschaert won most of the moments of the fight. Time elapsed. I feel like Gerald Meerschaert did more winning than losing in that fight, but he was cruising in the first round, tagging up Renier de Ritter, and then just got hit with this weird counter as they were both leaving the pocket. He was trying to escape out of his back foot. Renier de Ritter was just much longer than him. But man, for a dude that's a double champ coming over from one, I don't have the highest hopes for Renier de Ritter. He was getting pieced up by Gerald Meerschaert. What if he fights someone like Hobocop, he would get annihilated. I don't know. Yeah, I just don't have a ton of high hopes for Renier de Ritter. I feel like even Paulo Costa would just probably knock him out. His striking defense is so poor and he's so hittable. And when he gets hit, he seems so flummoxed on the feet that, yeah, there's any big combination puncher at middleweight, and there's a shit ton of them, could totally, put the screws to him. Tons of finishes. Damon Blackshear looked incredible against Cody Stamann. Really, really cool card. It was not supposed to be this cool in the prelims with just so many finishes back to back to back. Yeah, that's it. UFC Apex 100. Shout out to COVID-19 giving us the Apex. That wraps up the first segment of the show. Out with the old. We're going to talk about a pretty hot topic, a real hot topic in MMA, and I'm going to give my take on it. What's hot? We are going to talk about Jon Jones and is he ducking? Is Jon Jones ducking Tom Aspinall? That is the biggest question going into the UFC 309 fight week. And is Jon Jones ducking Tom Aspinall? Yeah, pretty blatantly, in my opinion. And I've been saying this. I mean, come on. Now, first, let me say this. I understand what Jon Jones is doing. It's blatant, it's obvious, but it's not stupid. Is it kind of lame? Yeah, for a guy that was, fighting with people about being the number one pound for pound ranked dude and saying the stuff he's been saying, like what are you saying to Kevin Iole this week? That's not number one pound for him. Number one pound for pound, greatest, baddest man on the planet behavior. Baddest man on the planet does not speak the way Jon Jones has been speaking this week. Yeah, I understand what he's doing. If somebody said, hey, Devin, you have to fight Tom Aspinall right now, or you have to fight Stipe Miocic right now, who do you pick? I'm going to ask if I can bring a gun. I'm only kidding. No, I'm going to pick Stipe. Yeah, they both fucking kill me. But if I was Jon Jones and I had to fight either one of them in a cage, do I fight the streaking Tom Aspinall, the dude that has spent less time in fighting? Jon Jones spent more time in the cage with Anthony Smith in fight time than Tom Aspinall has spent in his career. That's because he's fucking killing everybody, stopping everybody in all different sorts of ways. He's huge, he's athletic, he's fast. We know. If you listen to the show, you know about Tom Aspinall. But for Jon Jones to be saying in the media, to Kevin Iole, are you fighting Tom Aspinall next? And he's like, no, I'm 37. Alex Pereira's 37. I'm 235. We're more of the same size. I'm just like, I'm not going to call Jon Jones scared of a fight against anybody. But if he wanted to, this would be a really good fuel for that. It's very interesting. Like when Max Holloway fought Justin Gaethje for the BMF title. And by the way, the Max Holloway fight against Justin Gaethje for a fake BMF title, to me, in my heart as an MMA fan, is more of a title fight than Jones versus Stipe, because Jones will not unify. He's not fighting the rightful contender. And Max Holloway said before his fight against Justin Gaethje, if we were gladiators in the Coliseum, I would not be asking you to step on a scale. Gladiators didn't carry a scale around. That's why I'm the baddest motherfucker on the planet. Yeah, he did just get knocked out by Ilya Taporia, but that's not what Jon Jones is saying, looking to fight Tom Aspinall. He's like, maybe next Tuesday. Right now I'm 235. I'm kind of small. Alex Pereira's 37. He's not a good wrestler. And I'd be favored in that fight. I'll tell you right now, betting odds, I don't know if Jon Jones would be favored to beat Tom Aspinall. Probably not, and he probably shouldn't be. Like, if you're thinking Jon Jones is a favorite to beat Tom Aspinall right now, you're watching his fights from like 2014. I'm watching the Dominic Reyes fight and the Thiago Santos fight and the Anthony Smith fight. And it's crazy because Jon Jones is saying in the media, and I'm not here to slander him. Jon Jones is literally one of the greatest fighters of all time, and you could argue that he's the greatest, and you've got a good fucking argument. But he's saying that he doesn't want to risk his legacy to give someone like Tom Aspinall an opportunity. That sounds weird. Think about that. And then he's saying that he doesn't deserve it, and that, everybody was talking about Johnny Walker at one point, and I'm like, dude, you can't compare Tom Aspinall to Johnny Walker. Tom Aspinall, look what he's done to the division. He's clearing the division out. He's killing everybody. They're both basically undefeated. I mean, Jon Jones has the 12-6 elbow thing, and then Tom Aspinall's got the knee injury thing. The UFC could sell this. They'd love to sell it. All the fans, me, you, everyone listening to this, anyone that could even would rather watch that fight. Stipe off a 3-year layoff and getting knocked out by Francis Ngannou. I love Stipe. He's incredible. I was rooting for him to beat DC. Not that I don't like DC. I just like Stipe. But he's 42. We saw him hobbling into the arena like 2 years ago. He could barely walk. And this is not disrespect towards Stipe. It's, what the fuck do we have an interim title for? What do we have a champ for that won't unify? What are we doing? Jon Jones is saying that he doesn't want to ruin his legacy. In my opinion, what he's doing right now would ruin his legacy more than fighting Tom Aspinall and getting knocked out in the first round like Sergey Pavlovich. And I mean that because, hey, changing of the guard, he's almost 40. He was always a 205er. Tom Aspinall's big, powerful. He may be the greatest heavyweight of all that we've ever seen, blah, blah, blah. Then just being like, no, I don't want to fight that dude. Why? Because I don't want to lose. That's what it sounds like to me. I don't think he's scared to get into a fist fight with him, but I think he's scared to have that 1 in his record turn into a 2 and have a real legitimate loss. And I don't blame him. He's trying to be the Floyd Mayweather of MMA. That O or that 1, whatever, that buys you a lot. Ask Khabib Nurmagomedov about that. It's a huge selling point. And it's just become blatant, and there's going to be Jon Jones fans out there that may slander me in the comments here. this is a terrible take, but no, I mean, come on. Freaking Ray Charles could see this. This is pretty blatant, pretty obvious. I don't blame him for what he's doing. I see what he's doing, but is it a smart business venture to fight Stipe Miocic, who has got the incredible highlight reel, um, greatest UFC heavyweight at a bare minimum, on a lot of people's eyes, greatest heavyweight of all time? Add that name to your record. It makes sense. Less risky than Tom Aspinall. I totally understand it, but I see it. That wraps up the middle segment of the show. What's hot? Please don't come for me in the comments. I'm really not trying to slander Jon Jones in any way. I just, want my testament to be clear that it seems that he is ducking Tom Aspinall. It's almost obvious. Moving on, UFC 309 takes place in the great state of New York at Madison Square Garden. This is headlined by Jon Bones Jones fighting the fireman Stipe Miocic. He's a fighter. The GOAT heavyweight versus the GOAT. I guess that's how they're selling it. Pretty cool fights on this whole card. We're going to talk about 3 of them. It's kind of probably obvious what we're going to talk about. First fight we're going to talk about, we've got Bo Nickal taking on Paul Craig. Paul Craig has a very interesting nickname. Bo Nickal is nicknameless. Unless there's something that I'm missing. Nope, he is nicknameless. Bo Nickal comes with a 6-0 record. This is his biggest step up in competition by far, taking on Paul Craig. Paul Craig is coming off of a couple losses. You guys know, it's Paul Craig. If you don't know who Paul Craig is a dude that has spent a lot of time up at 205. He is a guy that has no striking besides a body kick, but an incredible BJJ game, and his top game is pretty good. He's got pretty good ground and pound, but his whole entire thing is his guard game, his sweeps, incredible triangles, arm bars, everything. He's a big time triangle guy, triangle arm bar guy. Ask freaking Jamal Hill about that. That's his game. Just a weird Scottish, kind of big and buff BJJ guy. Bo Nickal, NCAA high level collegiate wrestler. Also spent a tiny tad bit of time, in some BJJ competitions. He's done some grappling competitions, but he transferred over to MMA back in 2022. He debuted and killed a dude in Jorge Masvidal's fighting promotion. And then his very second fight was in the Contender Series, third fight in the Contender Series, fourth fight in the UFC. So he's got 3 fights in the UFC now. All of his pro fights have been, I don't want to say UFC, but all of his pro fights, Jorge Masvidal's fight organization, he's definitely probably rubbing elbows with some UFC guys, Jorge Masvidal himself. And then the Contender Series, obviously, is the UFC thing. And, he's got 5 fights basically under the UFC umbrella. But Jamie Pickett was his UFC debut, and there was a little bit of controversy with the nut kick thing. And then he fought Valentin Woodburn, who's a 155er on short notice, and he just blasted him with strikes. His last time out, he fought Cody Brundage and faced quite a bit of adversity. Kind of got, muscled around in a moment, and people are saying he got exposed, and I think that's hilarious. But maybe if I said I was a Lord of the Rings fan, let's go to the Hobbit. Smaug the dragon, he's got 1 scale missing, and that's his only weak point. I think maybe we saw the one little missing scale on Bo Nickal. We saw his only little tiny weak point against Cody Brundage. But no, the guy's an incredible wrestler. He's got pretty good submissions himself, and he's got pretty good striking, good power, and he's not really scared to let his hands go, because he knows that if he ends up on the ground with anybody, he can kind of keep up with almost anybody there. In a fight with Paul Craig, Paul Craig is a guy that's probably, I'm just going to read off some of the dudes that Paul Craig has fought. Kyle Bahario lost time out. Last time out, he got knocked out by Kyle Bahario. That's a fight that he shouldn't be in fights like that. Before that, he lost to Brendan Allen in the third round, where he kind of had some back and forth with Brendan Allen. Before that, he viciously finished Andre Muniz. Before that, he got knocked out by Johnny Walker. Before that, he lost the decision to Volkan Oezdemir. Before that, he triangle choked Nikita Krylov. Before that, he had a really impressive win against Jamal Hill. He did beat up Shogun really badly and made him tap the punches. But he's lost against like Alonzo Menefield. He literally triangled Kennedy Nzechukwu, who's up at heavyweight now. You know, he himself got kimura by Jimmy Crute. Triangle choked Magomed Ankalaev. Got knocked out by Khalil Roundtree. The list just goes on. Like, he's fought fucking everyone. There's multiple title challengers that he's fought. Like, he's submitted Ankalaev, submitted Jamal Hill, dudes that are up a division that fought for titles, held titles. Like, it's just Paul Craig's such an incredibly weird dude. He will probably welcome Bo Nickal to the mat here, and I think his only chance to win a fight like this is to catch Bo slipping. I think Bo doesn't wrestle at all in this fight and just tries to knock out Paul Craig on the feet. And we're going to learn a lot about Bo Nickal striking in this fight. Number one, because Paul Craig will give him the opportunities to get some strikes off so he can show us what he's about. And number two, if he can't outstrike Paul Craig and he has to welcome him on the ground, then number one, that's going to be really telling for his future. And I've got personally super high hopes for Bo Nickal. I think he's a problem in this division, but these are tests that he's got to pass. And I think this is a smart fight for him to take, and a smart fight for Paul Craig to take. If he goes out there and beats, number one, even if he beats Bo Nickal, and I didn't give you guys the odds. I'm sorry. Let me give you the odds right now. I just assumed, I just went into it. I took a week off. Odds on this fight. Bo Nickal is a minus 1,000. Paul Craig is a plus 650. If Paul Craig submits Bo Nickal, that won't even be his best win. Which is just funny because he's such a huge underdog here. But like Magomed Ankalaev or Jamal Hill or fucking Nikita Krylov, like as of now, maybe in the future that'll age into his best win. But even if he submits Bo Nickal, I'm picking Bo Nickal to keep this fight on the feet though, and avoid the ground at all. Maybe he'll catch some Paul Craig body kicks because Paul Craig does have a sneaky good body kick. But he's big. Paul Craig's going to be bigger than Bo Nickal. And we saw him have a little tiny bit of an issue with the physicality of Brundage, but Paul Craig's going to be like looking to pull guard and shit. Paul Craig will be willing to sit under Bo Nickal, and what Bo Nickal will have to keep in mind is that Paul Craig will stay really composed under vicious ground and pound, looking for wrists to try to elevate his hips. And I would not be surprised if Paul Craig gets some weird triangle and like breaks his, like if this looks like the Jamal Hill fight, it's Paul Craig. Like it happens every 4 or 5 Paul Craig fights where he just like finishes somebody that he's not supposed to at all. It could totally be Bo Nickal. And that would like shit in the UFC's apple pie. People would lose it. I don't think that's gonna happen though. I think Paul Craig's taken so much damage in his career, and I think Bo Nickal's got a big, powerful overhand. He stopped Val Woodburn. Go look at the tape on his UFC debut. And Bo Nickal's got a submission game himself. Like he's got like the Donovan Beard fight, like he triangled that dude. Yeah, just go out there and club him, Bo. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to show us you're striking this fight. Give me Bo Nickal by round 2 KO. Moving on to the co-main event, we have Charles do Bronx Oliveira taking on Michael Chandler. We're going to actually hear Iron Mike twice this weekend because Mike Tyson is also fighting Jake Paul on Friday night. And that's all I'm going to say about it. It's on Netflix. It's free. That's all. Well, it's not free to have Netflix, but that's all I'm saying. Odds on this fight. Charles Oliveira is a pretty hefty favorite, minus 270. Michael Chandler's coming in at plus 220 as the dog here. Michael Chandler at the spry age of 38 years old. He does not look 38, and he is incredible. Now, he's a true physical athlete. And so is Charles Oliveira himself. Michael Chandler, he is a dude that got into the UFC kind of right. He was 34 when he came to the UFC, and he immediately got thrown into a fight with Dan Hooker and was the first person to like knock Dan Hooker out with punches, and incredibly just ran through Dan Hooker. And then his next fight out, he fought for the vacant title against Charles Oliveira. That was in 2021. He hurt Charles Oliveira, almost finished him in the first round, and then Charles Oliveira came back and took his back. He escaped the back and then ended up succumbing to a second round finish where he got hurt via left hook in the pocket from Charles Oliveira. After that, he had like fight of the year in 2021 against Justin Gaethje. After that, he defeated Tony Ferguson after getting hurt, and that was like the last time Tony actually looked good, even though he lost to Michael Chandler. And then last time out, he had a war with Dustin Poirier where he kind of got pieced up and almost finished in the first round, and then came back and won the second round via grappling. And then Dustin Poirier showed us his black belt and took the back and got a rear naked choke in the third. Really cool back and forth fight. Michael Chandler can have a close fight with anybody. He had a close fight with Gaethje, even his loss to Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira, he is coming off of a split decision loss to Arman Tsarukyan, and that was back on UFC 300. Kind of one of the not great fights of UFC 300. Lost to Arman Tsarukyan. Before that, he finished Beneil Dariush. Before that, he lost his belt to Islam Makhachev. He had that incredible run where, I mean, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Won an 11 fight win streak. Started with Clay Guida in 2018, and it ended with Justin Gaethje via finish in 2022. Dude just went on a freaking killing spree. Charles Oliveira, he is his game. He is a really, really good striker. Pretty defensively porous, but in that he's brave. And his to call him brave now, if you watch his like Max Holloway fight, you just got teleported here, time travel. And I'm telling you, on November 11th of 24, that Charles Oliveira is brave. You'd laugh at me, but no, he's a brave fighter. Really good power. Justin Gaethje said it's the hardest he's ever been punched. He may change his mind on that now that after UFC 300, Max flatlined him. That might be the hardest Justin Gaethje's been punched. But he said every time he got hit by Charles Oliveira, it felt like he like stuck his tongue on a battery. He said he just, literally set him on fire. He said he never felt that when he got hit before. Charles Oliveira is a long, lengthy guy. He's got good knees. He's a good, dirty boxer. He's good in the clinch, good in the pocket, pretty good at range with his kicks. He hurt Beneil Dariush with a head kick. Good jump knees, pretty good off the front foot. He's got good footwork. Look at the way he cut off the cage and bought Michael Chandler once Michael Chandler was hurt on the back foot. Pretty good top game, but a really good back take and submission game, and a pretty good guard game himself. But I think his best thing is his like standing back takes against the cage, like how he finished Dustin Poirier, and his bravery and his resilience. Michael Chandler, when it comes to bravery and resilience, same thing, man. He will fucking die on his sword, and both of these dudes will die on their swords, and that's what we love them for. This is the best fight of the night by far. Like, highest level MMA competing here, and these are two dudes that are old in the game. These dudes got more fights than Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic, and they're at a lighter weight class, and here they are. Still the elite of this division. Michael Chandler, what does he do? Well, he's got good power, pretty good footwork, good boxing, defensively porous himself. Him and Charles Oliveira both have good cardio, and they're both just fucking brave. They're willing to take one to give one. Neither one of them are the most durable dudes, but they both have good recoverability. And it's not like, number one, they have good recoverability instinct, and number two, it's just like their bravery. Like their recoverability is just all heart. Both of them got tons of fucking heart. this whole entire, like, really quick, lightweight right now is just full of dudes that have so much heart, and they're dudes that are like, you know, generationally or on the back, they're on the back nine easy. They're almost done. You got Dustin Poirier, all fucking heart. Justin Gaethje, all fucking heart. Charles Oliveira, all fucking heart. Even Islam Makhachev, look at his fight with Volk, all fucking heart. Like Michael Chandler, all heart. If Max Holloway decides to come up to this division and stay here, he's another one of those dudes, just all heart. Tons of OGs with just tons of balls in this division. It's a really interesting fight because Michael Chandler, if he said that he's coming in differently when he fought Dan Hooker, he fought like a smart, calculated game. And then once he lost the title fight to Charles Oliveira, it kind of almost looks like he said, fuck it. But then he wanted to wait for the Conor McGregor. And that, I mean, it's been 2 years since he's fought somebody, and he's realized that Conor McGregor would rather, put white powder in his nose and fight people. I don't blame Conor McGregor. Why would he fight anyone right now? He has way too much money. Anyway. But I don't know what, if we get reckless, Michael Chandler, it's probably curtains for him again. Charles Oliveira, he's a dude that's long in the tooth, but he's also very dangerous. He's just all around even more dangerous than Chandler. Chandler is probably the more powerful puncher, but as you saw in their last fight, this is a rematch. This is a 5-round co-main event as well. I like when the UFC does this. They should just make all pay-per-view co-main events 5 rounds, because if it's not a title fight, it means just as much as a title fight to fans. And a fight like this, I mean, means way more than, no offense, but this fight means way more than whoever the hell Juliana Pena fights next. If Chandler fights the way he fought Dustin Poirier from the second round into the third, he's got a chance here. Like, we just saw Arman Tsarukyan take him down. Charles Oliveira, his one problem, he does have good get-ups and he has pretty good sweeps. Like, we saw him get up against Islam once, but he's also like a willing guard player. He can be trapped on his back. And, his last fight against Arman Tsarukyan and his Paul Felder fight, like, especially the Paul Felder fight, I know he's different since then, but he's a willing guard player, and he's not the most durable dude chin-wise. Like, he can't. Charles Oliveira gets hurt in literally every single fight that he's in, and there are avenues for Michael Chandler to get like a ground and pound TKO here, or even hurt him on the feet and follow him to the ground and finish him with punches. The odds on this fight too, like, Charles Oliveira should just be like a minus 150, 170, but not like minus 200. Like, that's pretty, Chandler being plus 220. I get it. He's 38. He's long on the tooth as well, but he looks like he's in incredible shape. I'm a little bit concerned about Michael Chandler because there were some rumors that came out that said that this fight was almost not going to happen, and it was on Chandler's side. Him being 38, that kind of makes me concerned, but Chandler's a consummate professional. He'll show up and make the weight, and so will Charles Oliveira. He will die trying, but Charles Oliveira will show up and try his best. You guys have seen the weight cutting videos and pictures of him. Part of me really wants to pick Michael Chandler to win this fight, because I think if he fights a smart game plan, he does have the tools to do it. But Charles Oliveira is so dangerous in a 5-round fight. There's just a lot of opportunity for him. And I could totally see him getting hurt, like Chandler getting hurt by something. Oliveira is just going to walk forward and throw so much different varying offense. There's no way this fight goes all 5 rounds. And if it does, it's like fucking fight of the year, blood and guts, both dudes, like a 10-8 round on each side either way, because you have to literally both escape death to win this fight. Give me Charles Oliveira. He's going to get hurt. He's going to get hit with like a big punch or something. But give me Charles Oliveira to hurt Chandler at some point, maybe force something up against the cage and take his back and choke him out. I think if Dustin Poirier could do it, I think Charles Oliveira can do it too. Give me Charles Oliveira to win by third round rear naked choke. Moving on to the main event. We have the champion, Tom Aspinall. I'm kidding. The champion, Jon Jones, taking on Stipe Miocic. Odds on this fight are Jon Jones is a giant favorite, minus 700. Stipe comes back at about plus 500. Those are kind of insane odds because, like, I mean, I don't know. Still Stipe. And outside of that Cyril Gane fight, Jon Jones hasn't shown me anything extremely inspiring either. This is a really strange fight because I really don't know what to expect. Looking through Jon Jones's career, he has definitely had peaks and valleys through his career, even with all it's still remaining all wins, by the way, but performance wise, definitely peaks and valleys. Like the way he looked against Rampage Jackson when he won the belt against Shogun Rua back in 2011. This crazy Jon Jones run, kind of expired in 2019. But the head kick KO over against DC, that actually was over, or the head kick and punches, that was overturned due to no contest. We all saw what happened. And he did beat up Glover pretty bad. He was actually landing that really cool like standing armbar where he's like wrenching Glover's arm and like hyperextending it upward. That was really cool in that fight. But man, starting in 2019 against Anthony Smith, and then the Thiago Santos fight where he won that via split, and then the Dominic Reyes fight where, like, come on, guys. Go to MMADecisions.com and look at how many people scored that fight for Dominic Reyes. That's all I'll say. But, like, Anthony Smith was in 2019. Thiago Santos was in 2019. Dominic Reyes was in 2020. And then Gane was in 2023. Like, there's a lot of, for him to be a minus 700 here, and this fight's going to play out. I'm going to be like, oh, duh. But in 2019, Stipe was on his second fight with Daniel Cormier. But Stipe hasn't fought since 2021, where he got knocked out by Francis Ngannou, where that was like the best heavyweight. That Francis Ngannou looked fucking incredible back then. Stipe is 42 years old. And he himself went on an incredible run. Like in 2015, he knocked out Mark Hunt, and then he knocked out Andrei Arlovski, and then he had that crazy, off the back foot, knocked out Verdum, and then he had that nice comeback win where he knocked out and finished Alice Overeem, and then he knocked out JDS, and then he defeated Francis Ngannou, and I watched that fight back, and he was like, not just a wrestle, not just a lay and pray, like he was tuning Ngannou up on the feet, like in the beginning of the second round, I watched it, he hit Ngannou with some punches that I don't know how Ngannou took. He looked so dead already after one round, too. That was a really funny performance from Francis. If this fight were happening in 2020, like if this fight were happening in December of 2020 after Stipe defeated Daniel Cormier, I'd probably be leaning Stipe pretty big here, because at that point, the last fight we would have seen was the Jon Jones versus Dominic Reyes on that side, and I'd be like, yeah, the Dominic Reyes that fought Jon Jones, if he had to fight the Stipe that fought DC those 3 times, I'm picking Stipe. But right now, we've seen Daniel Cormier take Stipe down and have success there. Stipe did stay pretty safe, but he's 42. We saw him walking down, and I forget where he was, what event that was a couple of years ago, where he looked like tiny and feeble and like bow-legged, and I hate to say it, but like just like did not look like somebody that should come back and fight for a title. What is Jon Jones good at? Kind of almost everything. He's not a combination striker really at all. He just throws a lot of varying attacks. Throws a lot of eye pokes. I'm kidding. Um, he uses his range really well, but he's also really good in the clinch. He's really, really good in the clinch. He's got really good takedowns from the clinch. His elbows are nasty. His front headlock game from the clinch, like if he pushes you against the cage, hits you with some elbows, and like will sag up on top of you since he's so tall and long. It's that fucking incredible front headlock game. He's really dirty in clinch situations, and he's got a really good mind for fighting. If you go back and watch like Glover Teixeira fight, where they're both jockeying for underhooks, like standing in the clinch, and Jon Jones is like getting that standing armbar where he's hyperextending Glover's arm and fucking jacking it up, causing his arm and elbow to hyperextend. He's just really like gritty and dirty in a fight. Really good teep kicks. He is just such a well-schooled fighter. That's why he's so good at fighting. It's his size, his range, but he's got such a mind for it, and he's such a student of the game where like he will watch tape. And I heard him in an interview today where I forget what post fight, it was like from 2015, where he was talking about the DC fight, maybe not 2015, but whatever. Talking about the DC fight, and he's like, I watch so much tape on my opponents that I just absorb their skills, and the stuff that they think they're going to do to me, I do to them, and that's what he does. He and he kind of foolishly wanted to have a striking match with Thiago Santos. And he really struggled to get any wrestling going against Dominic Reyes. And that's when Dominic Reyes was streaking, and now look at him. But he had a lot of success just kind of getting on the front foot and throwing hands with Jon Jones. He landed a lot on Jon Jones. A lot of people thought he won the first 3 rounds of the fight. Jon Jones has got a really good top game, really, really good ground and pound, and with these 12-6 elbows. He's really great about bringing in the right training partners too. He's brought Gordon Ryan in for this camp. He's been doing rounds with Gable Steveson. If anyone's on social media has seen that. So it tells me that he's coming in to wrestle, but he also told Kevin Iole that he's 235, which is like, man, are you thinking about like giving up this belt if you win and trying to go to 205 to pick a fight with Alex Pereira for that belt again? Because if he does that, I'm totally okay with you could take the middle segment of the show and delete it. If he gives up the belt and says, I don't want to fight Tom Aspinall, here's the belt, I'm going to go cut to 205 and fight Alex Pereira, whatever. I'm cool with that. If he's willing to cut to 205 again and fight him at 205, all good. No harm, no foul, I guess. So he seemed to kind of come in, I hate to use the term portly, describing Jon Jones, but he had a little bit of a belly and stuff when he came in against Cyril Gane, and he used that front headlock game and he laid all over him. I think this is going to be a different tactic in this fight against Stipe. Jon Jones, the one thing that he is not great at is striking in the middle range. He's really good in the clinch. He will mug you in the clinch. Incredible elbows, incredible knees, incredible strength there. His tie plum is incredible. And he's really good striking at range, like with 1 and 2s or kicking at range. But like in the pocket boxing with angles and stuff, Jon Jones has got an incredible chin. One of the best ever in MMA. Like he's taken some big shots from dudes and been okay. But like Stipe still might be like the most dangerous dude that Jon Jones has fought. And I know that's crazy. You're like, he beat Shogun Rua, but like Stipe's got good boxing. I watched the Roy Nelson fight just recently, where the way that that back foot counter game, like I don't think Jon Jones is going to be getting on the front foot and chasing Stipe down. He even stung Francis Ngannou with that punch before he knocked him out. He gets everyone with that back foot, pause, then bomb, then rip, and they'll rip a straight down the pike. Take a couple steps back, pivot just a hair, plant, throw. Stipe gets everyone he fights with that when they chase him. Yes, Stipe can be a problem in the pocket. What worries me about Stipe and what they're going to watch is in the clinch, Stipe got bombed down by DC and finished in their first fight, and that's how he lost the belt to DC. Stipe is also a dude that's a student of the game, dude. Like he's got good body punching, good variance of strikes. He's not much of a kicker at all. Good pivoting, good footwork. He landed like the UFC record at the time, like over 300 strikes on Mark Hunt when he finished him in the 5th round of that fight. He's got all the ability to have good cardio, and if this is a prime Stipe, I'd probably pick him to win this. Like, he's a decent scrambler. He's got good footwork, good power, and he's got good volume, and he's not scared to throw shots at people. Stipe wants to win this fight. He has to get into the pocket with Jon Jones and avoid the clinch, avoid the teep kicks down the middle, and avoid the wrestling, or at least stay safe and try to scramble out, or at least defend the initial takedowns like Dom Reyes did. I don't think Stipe's the athlete or has the speed that Reyes did at that time today at 42. So he's really going to have to work on his scrambling and his getting back up. But the training with Gable Steveson, Gordon Ryan, like the takedowns plus the top control, Stipe has been really quiet. And when he's quiet, that means he's putting in work. He's going to have to get the strike count up on Jon Jones if he wants to win this fight. And he's got the power to, people think this fight's going to be a wash, but like, Jon Jones is not the most dangerous person that Stipe Miocic has fought. Is he the greatest person Stipe Miocic has fought? Probably. Is Jon Jones, when I say dangerous, I mean like go from I'm winning to I'm dead. That's not Jon Jones's game. Jon Jones is like cut you with, it's not with 1,000 paper cuts, it's 100 razor blades. Francis Ngannou is hit you with a rocket launcher. He fought that dude twice. Fought JDS twice. Fought Roy Nelson. Fought Fabricio Verdum. Fought Alistair Overeem. These are dangerous dudes with like a complete fight-changing power and ability. Stipe also hasn't fought anyone in the top 15 that's currently ranked at heavyweight. I don't think he has a win over anyone on the roster right now. And for those reasons, I'm going to pick Jon Jones to win, but I do not think it's going to be a wash. I think Stipe Miocic has the ability to at least stay safe on the ground and do a lot better on the feet. Dominic Reyes is a crafty boxer. Stipe Miocic is just as crafty of a boxer. He will throw more volume, and he is way braver than Dominic Reyes and hits harder than Dominic Reyes. Do not be surprised if Stipe wins a stinky, weird decision here where he, people are upset, Dana's upset, he's happy, and he just lands more strikes than Jon Jones. Don't be surprised if Jon Jones just takes him down and elbows his head off. I think Jon Jones is going to win via 4th round finish on the ground. But I think Stipe is going to have more moments in this fight than people are going to expect. And more people are going to be watching this fight to see what Jon Jones says in the end. In a perfect world, he goes to 205 and he fights Alex Pereira and he gives the belt to Tom Aspinall and says, "Hey, Tom, you couldn't take it from me. I'm giving it to you." He can still feel like his ego wins and he can go pick his fight with Alex Pereira. That's the show, guys. Check the kick. I'll be back next week to talk about this fight. And then there's a UFC event in China at like 4 a.m. or something crazy. We'll talk about that a little bit too. Thank you so much for tuning in. Sherdog.com. Check the Kick podcast. I'm Devin. Let's go. Enjoy the fights.